Hello folks, hope you're having a wonderful week. It is Thursday. That means we're on our way down to the weekend, which is great stuff. I hope you're all doing well, you're feeling well, your health is doing well, and your mental health is also doing well. And if it's not, maybe having a little chinwag with your pal Northern Exile about some Warhammer 40,000 lore will set you in a better mood than what you were before you started the video. If you like what I do, the subscribe button is down below. If you could do that for me, or pass this video on to somebody who might get a kick out of it, and help me reach that 15,000 subscriber by the end of the year goal, that would mean the world to me. It's free, no skin off your nose, and it helps me out. So there we go. Getting into some Warhammer 40,000 lore. This video is entitled, or at least it should be on the thumbnail, or we'll see, why the Imperium should not be united. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing about me. You all know the core tenets of what I think Warhammer 40,000 should be, right? On this channel, I guess you guys know my initial stance when it comes to the current state of the Warhammer 40,000 lore. And if you don't, or need a quick recap, here it is. My current state of Northern Exile's opinions on the Warhammer 40,000 lore in 3 key points. Number 1, the lore of Warhammer 40,000 since the end of 7th edition has tanked in terms of quality. The grimdark of the setting is gradually being exercised in favour of mainstream themes and advertiser-friendly moments of bog-standard heroism. Anyone who's read the Avenging Sun books will attest to this fact. Number 2, Warhammer 40,000 should have moved forwards in time, but not in technology or a huge shift in its themes. The themes should still be grim darkness. The Primarchs should still be lost to a golden age of the past. The setting should have moved forwards so we can see a changing Warhammer 40,000 setting where the players shape the future and what novels get written about. Number 3, moving forwards, Warhammer 40,000 should have stayed as far away from the end times of Warhammer Fantasy battles in its themes of character assassination in favour of ending the current setting as quickly as possible. And that is, the last one is the main contentious one that I think people have a problem with. I honestly think that in Warhammer 40,000 we had a soft end times. We had an end times level event. And that was Cadia exploding and the Great Rift forming. It was Rabute Guilliman coming back, right? The end times, we are told, would have happened in 40k if it weren't for Guilliman coming back and steadying the ship. That's all well and good, but the end times have still happened in Warhammer 40,000. The end times in Warhammer 40,000 are not overt. They're not in your face like they were in Warhammer Fantasy battles, okay? In Warhammer Fantasy battles, the entire world just ended. That was it. Everybody's dead, Dave. Move on. Okay? Warhammer 40,000, the characters are still there. It's the setting that died. The grimdark setting of Warhammer 40,000 dies at the end of 7th edition. The Great Rift forms, and everybody becomes a caricature meme of what they once were, i.e. a Saturday morning cartoon about Space Marines. Let me delve into that a little bit more. With that said, one of the key factors of our setting is the Imperium itself. It is the central power of the setting and the power around which a good 90% of its relevant plot points spin. I know, if you love Xenos, I'm sorry, but the case of the matter is the Imperium is the most important thing going in our setting. It just is. And I wish it wasn't. I'm a huge fan of certain Xenos factions. I really wish that we could have everybody getting their time in the sun, but if you listen to Games Workshop, there's only a limited amount of time to go around, and you guys are unfortunately on the losing side of that. I have an issue with the Imperium at its core, though, in the current Warhammer 40,000 setting, in regards to my 3 previous boilerplate umbrella points. So with the Imperium being split down the middle by the Great Rift, as it is, and such a clear divide between the old guard of the Ecclesiarchy, the people who think the Emperor is a god, and Rebute Gilliman and his people wanting a return to the Imperium of science and rationality that it was during the Great Crusade, why is the Imperium united? It seems to me that Games Workshop is skirting over one of the best and most nuanced facets of the lore that has emerged quite organically, and that's the true genius of the lore that has happened so far. If Games Workshop came along and gave me all of this lore that we've had since 7th edition, and they said to me, now we have the Imperium split into parts, it's all split into parts and all shit's hitting the fan, I would be like, that's cool, I see what you're doing there, because you've organically created a problem within your setting that you're now going to have your heroes and villains fight against or for. I love that, that's good writing. It's personally still a bit of writing with a lot of rough edges to it, you know? It's like a very brute-forced way of doing more factions in the Imperium, but I like what you've done there. But they haven't. Okay? Sure. We had a few plots against Rebute Gilliman in earlier books when High Lords of Terror were trying to siphon some power away from him, you know, or even kill him. But they were soon stamped out in one book. They were stamped out, and it wasn't even a full book, it was like part of a book. They were stamped out as Imperial authority passed to the Primarch. It passed to Rebute Gilliman. So what? That's it? No more mention of the different factions in the Imperium. This is the same Imperium that nearly did another Horus Heresy directly after the first one, simply because Rogol Dawn didn't want to split his legion into loads of little parts. You're telling me Gilliman just comes back and resets everything and tells the High Lords of Terror, an institution that has been ingrained in the Imperium for 10,000 years, just to fucking do one and tell him to give me all the power because? No, right? Why do people in the Imperium even believe this is actually Gilliman? You know what's coming, don't you, as well? The Black Templars will accept the Primaris Marines eventually, despite reports of them rejecting and killing them. It's coming. That is the last bastion that we have of grimdark against this Saturday morning cartoon Avenging Sun nonsense. The last part we have is people like the Black Templars. As soon as they accept the Primaris Marines, we're done. We're done. Okay? We're finished. Grimdark's gone. It's coming, and when that happens, the last vestige of grimdark that 40k has dies with it. And that's not good. If any of you know anything about the way that I love 40k, I love the grim darkness of the far future, man. Put it in my veins. I absolutely love it. But to get to my next point, in this rather short video, I'm trying to keep it short, I'm minus 25 minutes anyway. We'll see if I manage it, I probably won't. But anyway. So what kind of factions could there be in the Imperium? And what kind of factions are there? So this isn't skeptical by me, right? This is me looking at the Imperium that Games Workshop have created right now and telling you where the factions are. Just so we can see where the fault lines are before I make the rest of my points here, okay? There's 4 main factions in my head in the Imperium. And if your faction isn't like talked about here, Imperial Guard, you guys are one of those, you will fit into one of these depending on which regiment you are. And which general you are, basically, right? Alrighty. So, number 1, the first faction, is the Ecclesiarchy. These are the people who think the Emperor is a god, and that the Imperium's leaders have failed to follow his vision. They want stagnant technology, complete adherence to the Emperor as a god, and see this as the only way to maintain the human race as it is. Ironically, they are kind of correct, as everyone following their creed will likely lead to the return of the Emperor as a god, if everybody in the Imperium follows their religion. But would that be a good thing? That's left up in the air. They are a grim dark faction. Alright? They are very grim dark. The second faction is the High Lords of Terror. These represent the nobility of the Imperium that have grown in the 10,000 year void of the Emperor. They make and enact laws in the Emperor's name, but it is anyone's guess if they make those laws for him, or just to suit themselves and their needs. Good or not, they have kept the Imperium running all this time, despite wars both within and without, and are insanely adept administrators and empire maintainers. Not builders, they don't conquer, but they can maintain like a motherfucker. They are also a grimdark faction. Alright? Faction number 3. Guilliman the Avenging Sun and Ultramar. This is the realm of Ultramar and of Guilliman leading the Imperium's forces in the field as its Lord Commander. More and more of the power of the other two parties are being siphoned to this faction. Over time, the Imperium's day-to-day running are flowing to Guilliman, and if things carry on as they are, this will be the new status quo. Guilliman is slowly subsuming what the Imperium is. People are starting to not look at the Ecclesiarchy and the High Lords of Terror, they're starting to look towards Guilliman, and I think this is a conscious choice on Games Workshop to move the Imperium, and by and large the entire setting, away from its grim dark roots, and to more Saturday morning cartoon, Avenging Sun, here is Rabute Guilliman, don't we all like the colour blue, right? Guilliman wants a secular Imperium. He wants to keep people safe, and to return the Imperium to a place of peace and prosperity. If there is a bland good guy faction, this is it. And this, in capitals, is not a grimdark faction. Completely not. Guilliman is fighting against the grimdark nature of Warhammer 40,000. If you like the grimdark nature of Warhammer 40,000, Guilliman is your natural opposition. Even if you're a loyal member of the Imperium, even if you play Ultramarines. Guilliman does not like grimdark. Guilliman wants grimdark to go away and die. Number 4, the final faction, the Astartes Old Guard. You know who you are. These are the poster boys of the setting, the Space Marines, who do not trust Guilliman or his intentions. The Black Templars are the main group involved in this part of the setting. The Flesh Tearers were once in here and very vocal, but new lore has stripped them of their balls and neutered them to liking Guilliman now. Other notable members of this faction could include people like the Carcharodons, the Iron Hands, the Grey Knights, the Custodes, the Space Wolves, the Minotaurs, the Red Scorpions, and others of this ilk that are on the more morally grey side of the Imperium's good poster boys. This is a faction that can be both grimdark and a bit less so. The Lion, for now, also falls into this category, but I'm telling you now, when him and Guilliman meet, they will hug, exchange pleasantries, and the Lion will be on side with what Guilliman is doing. Why? Because the Primarchs don't belong in a grimdark Warhammer 40,000 setting, because they bring hope and light and prosperity wherever they go. They are remnants of the Great Crusade and should stay there. They should stay there. Or they should come back and have the setting as we have it now. The grim darkness of it just fucking kills them. And in their place we have new heroes that Games Workshop makes for each of our, legions. For each of our legions or each of our chapters, a new hero is made to lead them. That's not quite Primarch level, but getting there, So, we have 4 main parties here, all fighting over the soul of the Imperium. At least they should be, but they're not. Almost all other factions will fall into one of these 4 subheadings, right? I am sure you can see just how many amazing pieces of lore and storytelling could happen if we split these apart and start telling these tales of tension and separation as they rub up against each other. The Imperium does not need to be united to be a credible threat to chaos and the big bads of the setting. Even the Imperium Nihilus is able to hold its own without the light of the Emperor, so the remaining Imperium splitting would not render it to fall completely. Okay? We should be seeing a lot of friction here and a lot more stories about this Imperium splitting apart, but we don't. Why? Because that would be a nuanced story that requires effort to tell. Rabute Guilliman taking over the Imperium and making it a Saturday morning cartoon about the good guys versus the bad guys right, is easier to do and to sell models for than a deep, nuanced setting that what 40k used to be. Games Workshop don't want grimdark. They don't want a niche hobby. They want a mainstream hobby making mainstream money. But I firmly believe you could have a mainstream hobby making mainstream money and still keep your grimdark setting. I do not believe what they're doing is correct, or the right way to go about growing our hobby and this beloved setting that we're all a part of. This is where the arc should have gone with the return of the Primarchs. A true breaking up of the setting so that everybody who loves something about Warhammer 40,000 can get what they want. Do you want to be a god, emperor loving dude? Then fight for the ecclesiarchy. Do you want to fight for justice, honour, and the dream of what the Imperium could have been? Fight for Guilliman. Do you want to fight for your brothers and keep the Imperium around you safe from others who might seek to corrupt it further? Fight for the Lion and the Astartes Old Guard. Everybody in this scenario, if we lead into the fact that the Empire, the Imperium, is splitting apart at the seams, everybody in this scenario gets what they want, and we all get to tell a countless number of stories. But what do we have instead? A gradual dumbing down of the setting to be, and I quote, the Imperium is full of good boys fighting for good boy things against, and I quote, the evil chaos people are bad people twirling their moustaches, unquote. Every other threat is relegated to a mere nuisance in this scenario. From Tyranids, Orcs and Necrons to Eldar and Drakari and Tau and everybody else, you are all done very dirty. Your lore is only allowed in the setting so long as it has something to do with Guilliman, I'm afraid. That's a real shame. So what would I do? I always do this with my lore. I put my money where my mouth is. What would I do? And I want this video to be a kind of underlining video of all my points about the Imperium breaking up or the end of 7th edition, right? I like to do this. I like to do mini-series within my videos where, you know, we will have a common theme that keeps coming up, and then eventually I will do a video that draws a line under that common theme and does a short essay on it to show you what the hell's going on with the setting going forward, in my opinion. So what would I do? If you've seen other videos I've done on this subject, you kind of know what I would do from this point on. If we have to move the setting forwards, and I want to, right? I want to do it without the Primarchs, and if the Primarchs do come back, I want to kill them. That's what I want to do, carte blanche. If you give me carte blanche to start again, that's what I would do, okay? But if you bring me in now, and say, here we are, here's the Imperium, Rabute Guilliman's back and the Lion's back, okay. I would kill both of them down the road, and I would kill all the loyal Primarchs that I bring back down the road too, as part of big campaigns and big stories, right? The one thing I would do, though, is I would split the Imperium into these factions. And exactly the factions that we've seen. So Terra and Mars and the western side of the galaxy, that is all the Ecclesiarchy and the Mechanicum. They're allied together. They don't want progress. They don't want anything like that. They think it's heresy to do anything that interferes with the Emperor's plan. The Emperor returns as a god. I've covered this before in my other stories. I don't really want to go into how he returns, right? But essentially, his soul being in the warp has been poisoned by so many people worshipping him that he's come back in shards, and the shard that comes back truly believes that he's a god. And he's an avatar for a god, okay? He has a proxy on the golden throne, right? So somebody else sits on the golden throne to power his spirit in the warp to keep the Astronomicon going. And the rest of his spirit is formed in a mortal shell that is here. It's a Primarch level shell that is walking around the Imperium, right? He's no longer the Emperor as he was. He's no longer at peak power. He can no longer do whatever he wants whenever he wants with how he looks and how he acts and how he, you know. He is literally a person. He is basically the most powerful of the Primarchs. His new body is this amazing Primarch level body, but he's killable. He's deadable, right? He's killable. And he believes he's the avatar of the Emperor walking around, and because he is the avatar of the Emperor as a god walking around. And so the Imperium in the West follows him. And it becomes very dogmatic. It becomes ultra grim dark. It becomes ultra 3rd edition 40k, right? The Black Templars go over to him, the Grey Knights go over to him, the Custodies are loyal to him. Like, all of those elite armies are a part of him. They follow him. The Adeptus Mechanicus also, the ones who aren't radical will go over to the Emperor. The ones who are radical will probably go to somewhere like, I don't know, Calf, and set up a new Forge World there, right? That's what they do. They go over there. We have lots of in-between places, right, in the Imperium, that either support the High Lords of Terror and the Emperor, or they support, the High Lords of Terror also have their own breakaway group. They go away and establish another empire somewhere, because the Emperor coming back isn't good for them, right? Because now they have somebody who's actually doing all of the rules that they don't want. And no, we're in charge. This is the very problem with organised religion. Organised religion doesn't want God to come back, because then they're not in charge anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? They're not the ones interpreting God's voice anymore. Same thing with the High Lords of Terror. The Emperor's going, you don't speak for me. So he either gets rid of the High Lords of Terror completely, or redoes them with his own people, and the High Lords of Terror take their really powerful mini empires that are in the Imperium as nobility, and they rise up in rebellion against this false emperor, quote unquote, right? So you have those two factions already at war. Then you have Guilliman over there, who's neutral, but kind of like angry that the Emperor's come back. He's not that, he doesn't think his dad would want to be a god, and he thinks this thing that has come back, isn't him. And so, he's at war with the other side of the Imperium as well. And in the Imperium Nihilus, we have all of our cool stuff. We have our Chaos, we have our Blood Angels and Space Wolves, and all those other people who are neutral, but fighting everybody. All against all. That's what it is. All against all. That's the Imperium that I would have. Endless warfare, constantly changing and shifting alliances, and you can actually see where one alliance pushes out another in a sector. You can have an emerging galaxy map that changes year by year in the hobby, where you can see what's gone on this year, what's gone on that year, and how has the galaxy changed. How is the narrative developing in this new Warhammer 40,000, right? When we go into the 42nd millennium now. That's what I would do. And eventually, I would either have the Primarchs stick around, because you've got the Emperor here now. I would either have them stick around and decide for themselves where they want to fall, or I would kill them off. One of the two. If I had carte blanche, okay, I would do two things. Well, three things, really. At the end of 7th edition, the Great Rift would happen. No problem with that, right? And the Emperor returns, along with Guilliman. Guilliman returns and the Emperor returns. So all of this shit kicks off. The Emperor returns, Guilliman returns. And again, they eventually butt heads, but right now, them combined stops chaos from spreading. Because right now, Guilliman does it on its own, and it's kind of fucking weak. But if the Emperor comes back, and Guilliman's there as well, I can definitely see them stopping the spread of chaos from the Great Rift, right? So the Great Rift and the Imperium Nihilus is not the Imperium. It's Abaddon's. Abaddon should have taken the entire galaxy at the end of 7th edition, but the Emperor coming back saved half of it. So we've given Abaddon his win. He has his own empire that can expand exponentially, and his warriors can fight. He is the big boss of the setting, like on Metal Gear, right? He is a Metal Gear big boss. He wants a place for his men to fight and not lose their meaning. He's not interested in the Chaos Gods. He's interested in fighting wars and winning wars forever. But that's not what the Emperor wants. The Emperor wants his Imperium to be this godlike Imperium that, everybody's walking around with a six-pack and, 9 girls on their arm, right? That's what he wants. And Guilliman wants a return to the Imperium as it was during the Great Crusade. The Emperor's secular Imperium, But the Emperor that you're seeing now isn't the Emperor who was around when he was a kid. Not when he was a kid, but when he was, before he went into stasis at the end of the Horus Heresy. So, That's what I would... Those are the big boilerplate things that I would do at the end of 7th edition. Primaris Marines. I would eventually kill off the Primarchs, or I wouldn't bring them back at all. Instead, the Primaris Marines would not be a full rollout of people. They wouldn't be, right? Instead, the Primaris project is only completed with the help of the Emperor, and he comes back and he gifts people a single Space Marine. A single one. One. But this single Space Marine is an ultimate... He's like a halfway house between a Space Marine and a Primarch. Incredibly powerful, natural commander. All the people in their legions or their Space Marine chapters want to follow them, right? And they go and they take over their chapters, or if the chapter already has an amazing chapter master, they become a champion of that chapter who supports them on the battlefield, that kind of a thing. That's what the Primaris do in my setting. It's not a big rollout of new models, right? We up the scale of the models just because we want to up the scale of the models. We don't need an in-law reason for making our models bigger. We just make our models bigger and better because they look better as they are. Okay? That's what we do. That's what I would do with the setting. I'm sure most of you hated that, but that's what I would do with the setting going forwards. If I had carte blanche to start again, that's what I would do. I would have different factions. I would have the Emperor returning, but in a guise that is much weaker. So he's not coming back to set everything right. He's basically Primarch level Emperor, is what he is. I would have if we need to have the Primarchs come back, I would eventually kill them off. Or I would literally say, if a Primarch comes back, that Space Marine chapter does not get one of these new Primaris Marines. Do it that way, you know? If you want to keep the Primarchs around. But that's what I would do. And everybody gets to have their cake and eat it. That's the way I would do it. What do you guys think? Do you think the setting has gone a bit too far off the rails? What do you think is going to be the next 10 years of Warhammer 40,000? Can you see the grimdark part of the faction, the grimdark part of the setting completely going away over time like I can? Or do you think I'm being a bit too overzealous with my thinking and my protection of the grim darkness of the far future of the 41st millennium? Let me know in the comment section down below. I'll be back tomorrow with some more Hobby Nightmares. I love you a long time. I'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye now.